Today I'm going to show you how I made this fire animation of the game Ascension Tactics Inferno. I don't do the voice very well, but the Kickstarter is doing quite well on Kickstarter, so highly recommend checking it out. But without further ado, let's go into the tutorial and learn how to set some things on fire with Cinema4D. Kicking off this project with a simple scene, we have a floor with a reflective material just to create some atmosphere and depth. We have a simple camera pullback just like this, and the box floating in the middle of the scene. Now, in the original script for this Kickstarter video, our friends asked, could we have the old material animate into the new material? So the way we're going to do that is with Vertex Maps. Vertex Maps basically takes information and ties it to the vertices of a 3D object, so then you can do fancy fun things with it, like texture animation. So first we're going to go to our material manager. Now, in the material that I used for the live project, if we double click it, there's a bunch of nodes. We have a normal and a bump map piped into a bump blender, and then that's piped into some other materials, and then our color channels. We're going to keep it simpler for this tutorial, and then you can get more complex with whatever you need for your project. So I have this tutorial material right here, and if I were to delete all these nodes, it is just going to give me an errored out red output. We have nothing going into this tutorial material right here. So the first thing we need is a material blender. So let's hit C on our keyboard and type material, and we're going to add a material blender. And what this does is it basically takes other materials in this master material and blends them together in some way. So first we're going to plug this into the surface, and nothing's going to happen because this material blender has nothing in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit C and we'll type in material again, and we're going to add a standard material. And this is going to be our standard material that we work with in Redshift if you're familiar with that render engine. So I'm going to set this one to red just for fun, and I'm going to hit Control on my keyboard, make out a new one, and we're going to set this bottom one to blue. And the goal here is to animate from red to blue. So if we plug this first one into our material blender, we'll go to the inputs, base material, color, and now we can see it's turning red in our material preview. Now I'm going to take the blue one, same thing, but instead we're going to plug it into layer 1 material color. Now with that there, we can see it's not blue yet, and that's because we have this blend color. And if you're familiar with Photoshop, this is basically like your mask. Black conceals, white reveals. So hypothetically, if I were to take this tutorial material and drop it onto the box mesh and just delete the old material, we can see, hey, now it's red. Awesome. So if I go to my material and I hit C on my keyboard and I type Maxon noise, drop that in, and it's going to give us a noise texture, which we can pipe into the material blender, layer 1, blend color. Now, what's going to happen is if we go to our Redshift render view and we kick off the play button, we can see that it looks red and blue, and it kind of looks like a noise pattern. And you could adjust the settings on this. So with the material, the noise selected, we can go in and change the scale of it, and now it's going to give us a different look, and we can zoom in right there. Hey, awesome. But what we need to do is we need to animate this material mask so then we can create that material wipe. So we're going to first hit Control-Shift-Z to undo that camera move that we just did. And then what we're going to do is we're going to delete this Maxon noise. Like I said earlier, we're going to use Vertex Maps to make this texture animation. So we're going to close out the node editor for now. We're going to close our Redshift render view, and we're going to select our box here. Now, the naming is box remeshed remesh. I had to remesh this object. I need to confess to all of my Cinema4D friends, when I was doing this project, I made a big boo-boo. and I want to save you some time. That boo-boo, if I leave my animated camera and I move around, I have a box. In the box, a very tiny version of the box. If you want to get really granular and technical, the size of this small box is actually the size of the box. It is about 27 centimeters in width and height. But for Pyro to look its best, it's better to have things larger. It's hard to have tiny fire, and it's hard to simulate that. So first off, the box in our scene is actually about 12 times bigger. So if you ever are working with small objects with your Cinema 4D scene and you're trying to do Pyro and it's not working, just a little pro tip, you can go to your edit, project scale, and you can rescale your project to a different scale, so then simulations will behave differently. Now, this is purely a look decision, not a accuracy decision. So with that out of the way, this box is very, very large. In addition to that, if I go to my options and I turn off my materials and then I hit NB on my keyboard, we can see if I look at this smaller box and I pull it out of the child of the big box, move it over to the side for a little bit, and then I scale it up about 12 times. So let's just go 12, 12, 12. It's about the same size now. We can see that one version of the box has a lot more geometry than the other. Why? It is because with Vertex Maps, if you do not have enough geometry, you don't have enough points on your object to create the complex animation. So with that said, let's make our Vertex Map. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the boxed remesh, and we're going to go to point mode. And now we have all the points selected. Hit Shift-C on the keyboard, and we'll type set vertex weight. It saved my history, so we can just double click that. And we're going to set the value to 0. Bam. Now it's going to turn red. Red means there's no vertex map animation on it right now. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to the tag that was just made on our object, and we're going to click on Use Fields. We're going to add a couple things to this. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a solid. We're going to drop this on the very bottom. So just to explain what the solid is doing, it's basically saying we want the value to stay red. When we say 0%, we're just saying that the vertices are currently just going to be red right now. And this just makes the animation process a little bit easier because we know at the beginning of the animation it's going to start at 0. So it's on the very bottom. We're just doing that. Now, what we need to do is we need to add a field to this. The field is going to make it a different color. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the box field, and we're going to add a box field. And now what we can see here is that we have this box field that's in our object at the moment. And basically, anything that's green, it's activating those vertices. Now, I'm going to go to my vertex map, and I have this freeze layer. I'm going to turn it off for now, just because I want to demonstrate what the box field is doing. If I move the box field around, anything that's green is basically saying, hey, turn this vertice of the box on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this box field and drag it out of the object of the box. I don't want it to be child of the animated box floating in the scene. I'm going to delete this other one from my scene. So I have this main one right here. Click on my box field remeshed, and I also have this freeze layer. And I'm going to make sure that the freeze layer is on top of the box field. And I'm going to set the box field to normal. Just like that. I'm also going to set the opacity to like 10%, a really small amount. Now we're getting to a point of the tutorial where some of these values are going to be subjective to your animation. So you will have to be the creative judge of what these values need to be just to make sure the animation and the simulation works. So with this freeze layer added, I'm going to take this box field and I'm going to move it to the very corner of my object right there. Because I know the box, the actual board game box, is going to land into this section, and I just want this corner to be affected right here. So if I go to my vertex map and I turn off the freeze, and then if I play this back and I go to the box field and I actually increase that opacity so it's a little bit bigger, and I also increase the size of the box just a little bit more, we can see that it's hitting just the corner there. And if I play the animation back one more time, we can see, hey, look, the corner of the box just hits that box field. But that's not a cool looking animation right now. So what we have to do is we're going to hit Shift F to go to the beginning of our animation. Move our camera back just a little bit. We're going to click on that vertex map that we just added. We're going to click on the freeze, add it, set the box field to lower value again, and then we're going to go to the freeze layer, and these values are going to be different, and the mode for you will be different. So the mode by default is going to be something other than grow. You want it to be grow for this kind of animation. And what that's basically saying is when a vertex is activated, grow it out by a certain radius. So we're saying 20. So then if I were to play this back with these settings, the freeze on top, the box field in the middle, and the solid set to 0%, if I play this back, box is going to animate down, and it's going to hit, and it's going to activate things at the radius rate and grow out. Awesome. So this is going to create our texture reveal. So now let's just take a quick step back, and we're going to go to our tutorial material. Now I have this material blender right here, and I'm going to hit C on my keyboard, and we'll type vertex attribute. And this is exactly what we want because it's going to take data from the vertices and basically adjust the material based on whatever the vertex is saying. So add the vertex attribute, and we're going to pipe this out color into the layer 1 blend color. And now, if we go to our Redshift render view, and I'm going to dock this right down there for now. And I know it's very tiny and small, but if we hit the play button on that and we move our camera around, we can see that it is blue-ish. It's bluish. If we zoom in right there, it's definitely a blue color. I know it's a little dark, and we'll get to the lighting in a second. It's blue, but that's because what we're doing is we're also not piping in the vertex attribute of this vertex map. So first thing we have to do is make sure that it's named correctly. Right now, the default is going to be vertex map. Now, if you just have one vertex map, it's fine to keep it that way, but if you have multiple vertex maps on one object, you have to name it something different. Otherwise, it's going to break everything. So we'll call this texture reveal. We're going to take this vertex map and drag it onto the vertex attribute name right here. So take that, drop it there. So now, the viewport down here, we can see that the box is going to turn red. Let's go to fit window. So now, that box is red, and if we were to scrub through our timeline and play it back and move our camera now, it's blue, and we can see right here that it's wiping away the red, and now we're getting blue. Awesome! Exactly what we want. We want to reveal that, and that will plug our new material on top of the other material. Awesome. Now, it does look a little gross right now. It looks a little flat and bland. You could work with this, but what I do want to do, I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to go to my vertex map. I'm going to go to my fields again, and I'm going to add one more thing. I'm going to click on the fields, and I'm going to add a random field, and I'm going to set it to overlay. So now, if I were to play this back, scrub through, it's going to create a cool little different look on the edge. So it just looks a little bit more organic. Now, if you get super close, it'll look a little crunchy, but you can go to your random field, and change the scale to, let's say, 20%, or let's just say 500%. And it's going to change the look. And you can stack these if you want, but that's how we're going to create the more organic fire reveal of the material. Awesome. All right, now we have to create the vertex map to reveal the fire, because with this current vertex map, it's green all the way through, which means fire will be on all the time, and we don't want that. We only want fire on for a very specific amount based on the animation that I did for Stoneblade. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our main box, and we're going to hit Control A in point mode. hit Shift F, go to the very beginning again. Right now, if we zoom in, everything's red. Now, quick tip. You have to make sure that you do not have your vertex map selected on the object you're trying to add another vertex map to, otherwise it'll just try and do the same thing. So, little thing to note, hit set vertex weight, and we'll set that to 0%. Now, it's going to add this new vertex map, and we'll call this Fire Reveal. And we're going to click Use Fields again. Now we're going to drag this to the right of the first vertex map, and we're going to delete this freeze layer. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're going to take the previous one, we're going to drag it into this object. So now, if we were to play this back with the second vertex map selected, it's going to basically do the same thing. Let's just zoom out and scrub through, play it back, does the same thing. Makes sense? I hope so. But if you have questions, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'd be happy to help out however I can. The way this works is it's basically saying, hey, you're the first one. I'm just going to do the same thing. But we don't want that. Instead, we want a way to reveal it off. Now, fortunately, in the fields option, there's these cool little modifiers to adjust the field. Now, you're going to hold click, and your default might be something different. We want the curve modifier here. Basically going to add a curve layer to our field. Now I'm going to get rid of my Redshift render view for just a second to open up this screen space. We're going to get this curve, kind of like you see in Photoshop or After Effects or whatever you're using. And we can bring it up and down and manipulate it, but instead we're going to do a funky curve, one that you've never seen before for color grading or anything like that. We're going to hold Control on our keyboard, and we're going to add a point by clicking on the line. Now we have this point we can manipulate. We are going to drag this to the very top, and we're going to flatten it out. We're going to take the point on the very far right, drag it to the very bottom, and now it's going to create this weird U-looking shape, upside down U, like a bell curve. And what this is going to say is basically start at 0 and end at 0. And we can adjust these curves however we want. Up to you. You are the chef. I'm going to set it up just like that. And now, if I leave my point mode, go back to object mode, and then I hit the play button, play it back with the second vertex map selected, it's going to give us a cool looking edge. That is what's going to reveal our fire. So, with that animation out of the way, let's go to our main camera and go to RS camera right here. And we play that back. We have the animation locked in the exact way we need it. Let's finally talk about fire. So in 2023, Cinema4D's Pyro tools are one of my new favorite things to play with, and I've done a couple tests and I enjoy it very, very much. It's so easy. All you have to do is right click on the object in which you want to set on fire, go to Simulation Tags and Pyro. Now, I'm going to leave my camera. What we can see is that if we play this right away, fire. How cool is that? Now, I will confess to all of my friends watching this video, I do have two 3090 graphics cards in my computer. So if you're working on something less than that, you're going to get different results. If it's less than a 3090, it's going to be slower. If it's better, then awesome. Good for you. So right now, if I were to just render this out, it's going to poof fire and explode everywhere. I don't want that. So what's really convenient about the Pyro tool is on the Pyro tag, we can see that under the Enable tab for the density and the temperature, we have a density map, and that is where we can take the vertex map that we just made and drop it into our slots for the vertex map, the temperature map, and the density map. And then if we were to play this back, let's just recompose our shot just a little bit. Now it is going to slow down a little bit more because we're telling our computer to render fire or simulate fire. It's going to create a mask based on the way in which we want to reveal fire and only show fire in those spots. Cool. right? Now, you can go and check out Chris Schmidt's tutorial or EJ Hassenfrat's tutorial all about fire. They have a ton of great ways to optimize fire. We're not going to get into that into this tutorial. But what I will say is if you want better resolution for your fire, what you have to do is adjust the voxel size. These fire simulations that you're making, they're basically 3D pixels, which are called voxels. And if you set this to a lower number, it's going to increase the resolution of that fire. Now, if you do bring it to a lower number, it's going to make it slower, so just be aware of that. So if I set this to 3, and I go to my Pyro object, which is another way to manipulate the fire in your scene, and you set the voxel size of the Pyro object to 3 as well, it's going to change the look of the fire. It will be more accurate, but it'll be slower. So for your project, you really have to decide to what degree in which are you willing to wait for your simulation, and how accurate does it need to be. Now for this, I want it to be a little bit more bursty, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Pyro tag on my object, and I'm going to increase the temperature to, let's say, 6500, and that should have it explode just a little bit more. Let's play that back, and we will see what that looks like. Now, I'd say, sure, that looks great for this tutorial. On your end, you can fuss around and make your pyro settings with whatever you want. At this point, for me, for this tutorial, we're ready to save the simulation. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our pyro object. We have this cache option here. And basically, this is saying we want to save each frame of the voxels, so then we're not rendering every single frame, and we can actually get it to our final render without trying to simulate in between frames, and it gets really hairy and technical, and just cache it. So you're going to click on Cache Scene, and you're going to go to wherever you want to cache it. These files will be very, very big. So just to let you know, save it on a hard drive that is big for you. So I'll make a new folder, and we'll call this Tutorial Cache 001. Double click on that. Just call it Simulation Scene. Click Save. And now you can see with this window right here, it's going to cache. So go take a break again. Instead, go stretch, go drink some water. We'll be back in a second. So what I do when I'm rendering, by the way, is I take this Grip Genie grip strengthener. This is a 100-pound one. It has a little R2-D2 on the bottom, and I just practice my grip strength so I can get some forearm gains.
20 minutes later.
Sometimes I'll hold it for like a minute if I can, or as long as I can, basically, and just try and
eventually.
So after about 10 minutes, this scene simulated, and we can see in our viewport, it's going to actually play a lot faster because it's not simulating each frame, but it's going to look different in our viewport. And that's because it's giving us a visualization of what the voxels look like versus the actual simulation. So to view this, what we have to do now is go to a Redshift render view, and we're going to dock this into our scene right here. And what we're going to hit is the play button, and something's happening in our viewport, but we obviously don't see fire in our scene. And I'm going to go to my main camera just to brighten it up a little bit, and it's not working. And the reason why is we need a pyro volume material. So we're going to go to Create, Redshift, Materials, Pyro Volume. And if we drag this on top of our pyro object, hey, look, there's some fire. And if we give it a casual scrub through, it's doing our animation. It's doing our simulation. However, if we recall earlier, we know that the blue and red materials are animating on and off based on the vertex map, which would be this vertex map right here. Now, here's the issue with this workflow, and perhaps one of the main reasons why I'm making this tutorial. If you do not save your file as an Alembic, it won't render correctly. And I can't tell you how many times I rendered this scene just to have it break on me. I was like, why is this going on? Here's why. We need to make sure that the vertex map animation for the fire and the textures line up. So the way we're going to do that, and the number one reason why I'm making this tutorial in the first place, is we need to save this box as an Alembic. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this box. We're going to go to File, Export Selected Object As, and Alembic. Now, by default, the end frame is going to be 90, and these objects are not going to be selected. So what you need to do is set your end frame to however long your animation is, however long your Cinema4D scene is, and then you need to make sure that your vertex colors and vertex maps are checked. Once that's done, you can save that somewhere on your scene. So I'll just delete this other one that I had and just save it in this root. And we're going to let it save. It's going to take some time. And now, once that's saved, we can go to File, Merge Object, and then we're going to go to that file that we just saved. Double click on that. Now, the default will look like this. What we need to do is make sure that you click on Color Maps and Other Attributes. We're basically saying, load the vertex maps, please. Click OK. And hey, look, there's the box, and it imported our thing with the vertex map. So now we can click on this box, and we can see that, hey, look, it's doing our animation, and the vertex maps are still there. And if I go to point mode, and I solo it, and I click on my vertex maps, we can see that they are right there. And they're doing exactly what we want them to do, and they are timed up and synced up. So, I will confess, we're going to have to resim because I simmed based on these vertex maps versus the other. So,
Eternity later.
Looks like that. But if we have our Pyro volume on the Pyro object and we hit play on our Redshift render viewport, hey look, it does the thing. Now, unfortunately, the project is currently gray. What you have to do when you do this Alembic workflow is you have to go back into your main material, and wherever that vertex attribute is, you have to change it to the new one that is right here. So we're going to go here to this vertex attribute and make sure that this lines up just like that. So it's going to basically be the same thing because it's all the same names, but we have to make sure that they line up with the new Alembic that we just added. Same thing with the Pyro object. Right now we're working with the cache, but if you do end up re-caching your scene or re-simming your scene, you have to make sure that the vertex maps are based on your material. So now, if I go to my camera and I add this tutorial material, they should theoretically match. And if I scrub through very casually, it goes from red to blue. Awesome. So now, how would you apply this to an actual live material? Well, first, let's just delete this box, this other box in our scene that we don't need. Goodbye. And then we can see, hey, look, there is our material on our object. And once that new material is on our object, we can double click on that. And we have to make sure that in this vertex attribute in the material blender, if you remember from earlier in the tutorial, we need to make sure that this aligns with the corresponding vertex map. So once that's there, and we go to our default camera, I know it's a little dark because we're changing the exposure with some of our camera settings, we can at least see that when we scrub through, it's on the old previous texture of the old box. I know some of you aren't familiar with the game, but just trust me, this is the old box that the client wanted to have wipe away. And we can see as we scrub through, it gets set on fire and we get the new material because we're revealing with those vertex maps. So if we go through to our RS camera and we close our wheel of settings, we can see that that shot pretty much is exactly what we wanted from Redshift to create the fire texture reveal thing, which I'm very excited about. These new tools in Cinema4D are so awesome that we can do something so cool at our fingertips. So I'm really excited about Pyro. And I wanted to share this workflow because I had a couple friends ask me. And I was like, you know what? Why not? I'll just go through the process. And I hope this tutorial was helpful to you, and if it is, and you go and make something epic and awesome, please do not hesitate to tag me on Instagram. I would love to see it. And from here, I would just say that's the end of the tutorial. I think I covered everything, and if not, comment section is down there so you can ask, hey, Jags, what about this or that? And I'd be happy to help you out as best I can. But until the next time in which I can help you out, I will leave you with the usual final tip. That final tip is to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and you will make some gains. Goodbye, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Thank you again. Until next time, have a good one.